Welcome back to Hot Rod Guy Garage. This is going to be another episode on this hack job of a 65 Mustang that constantly fights me with everything we do. So follow me along through the intro and I'll be back. So alright guys, it has been another week since we've had a 65 Mustang video. And you're lucky you're going to get to see this one, because this car has been nothing but a constant fight ever since we started it. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you go to the playlist that this video is in and check out some of the earlier videos, and you'll know where we're at this point and why we're at this point. So let me flip it around. I'll show you what we're going to do on this video and we'll go from there. You doing, Daisy? Everybody's going to be looking for you in your video. Daisy wants to remind everybody to check out our merchandise store down below. It'll be down there. So guys, today's video is going to be on installing these vent windows and the door glasses. And all the stuff it takes to mount this stuff and to adjust it. Along with, I got some little small parts in that box right there. But it's going to mainly focus on this stuff. So I had got some new vent window assemblies from Kentucky Mustang. So make sure you check them out, guys, at KentuckyMustang.com. There is a discount code down in the description below. The vent windows for these cars, new assemblies, are pretty pricey. Unfortunately, his old vent windows were straight hot garbage. And I'll have to flip that around and show it to you here in just a moment. But the door windows are missing a bunch of hardware, and we're missing a bunch of hardware in the beginning. And we're adjusted all kinds of nasty. And so were the vent windows. None of this stuff fit real well or was mounted real well in the beginning. So we were missing things like glass stops. We had window hardware in the wrong places. So I've been trying to figure out exactly 100% what we were missing. Fortunately, I just took my 6 doors apart for the budget drag car build over here. And I had some hardware out of mine. So I knew where the hardware went at that point. But I didn't know exactly what was, missing. So let's flip it around. So, vent window assemblies. Hardware, let's talk about you factory hardware. You're going to have a stud, a nut, stud and a nut, and there's a flat on the back of this that allows you to adjust these vent windows. They go in this bottom position and the bottom position on the front of the vent window. You have a short bolt that goes in the front with this weird square washer. You have a long bolt that goes in the back with a weird square washer. And as you can see, his old vent windows, these were the ones that were in the car. They're not in great shape. They're covered in weld slag and splatter. And they got a tinge of red overspray, as we can see. But these things look pretty poor and would really look bad on this car. And here's the other one. Let's see what it looks like. The pits have no end. Just bad stuff. So I went ahead and done the passenger side. So I'm going to let you guys ride along on the driver's side, and we'll get all this stuff together, and I'll come in and show you where I can show you on things and try to explain all this best I can. So hopefully in this video we can get both doors straightened out. I got his door panel sitting up there on top of the car. One thing I don't have is armrests, because his were broken and chrome peeling and garbage. Imagine that. I got his front seats drug out. They do not look any better than the back seat so far. So we're going to try to get all that stuff installed, but we're going to focus on the windows mostly. So let's get to it. So what we have are these new ACP vent window assemblies. These things are pretty nice. The chrome looks pretty decent on them. Everything looks like it fits up better than the quarter windows that we installed. The vent windows open and shut just fine. So what I'm going to do, I have pre-cleaned some of the hardware out of my 66. Considering his 65 between both windows, this was all the original hardware there was. that I just tried to lay it out in order. Now, you're going to have to install this in the door once you get the window down in there, but like I told you before, you're going to have a stud and a stud, and they go in these two positions. These studs have a flat washer made onto them right here. That pushes against the tab on the inside of the door, and this is your adjustment. And when I say your adjustment, I mean your swing adjustment for this vent window, in or out. And for your glass run channel here. These bolts pretty much are just a pivot. And when you lock them down, it just holds the vent window in position. So, let's get this thing stuck in this door. Hopefully it's explained a little better, because you're going to have to put these studs in with the vent window stuck inside the door. And another thing you're going to have to do, guys, and this is always a good idea when messing with stuff like this and you have painted surfaces on both sides. Especially a window or a car like this that's had everything pulled out of it. So I'm not going to push this tight on the sides over here. I'm just going to run a length of tape on this edge to protect it. Because all it takes is one slip and this screw. So sometimes I will double the tape up, and that just helps it pull off if you do happen to abrade the tape. But it'll make things much easier. And like I said, I'm not really going to stick it to the inside of the door. I just want it to kind of be a shield. So these vent windows, they just go down this door. You're going to have two metal dividers right here. Your glass run channel drops down the back side. Your front leg on your vent window drops down the front side. And once you get it kind of in position, it'll just kind of sit there, and you can switch sides. And you can go in here and get this thing worked on down where it sits in the door. And it'll sit here and not fall over, but right now's the time where you need to go ahead and get these two studs in those lower positions. And they're 5/32 Allen head right here. So what I do, you just go in here, and you can see kind of where these things go, but you can also get in here in different positions, and you can get these things started by cocking this vent window around, and you want to run these all the way in until the washer sits flat against the metal frame. And this part can be a little tricky to some. Why they designed it like that, I never know. As some of us say when messing with Ford stuff, it was one of Ford's better ideas. So you're going to have to move this vent window around a little bit, this door. You can kind of kick it around a little bit, pull it up. Whatever you have to do to get those studs in there. And the long sides of the studs do go towards the window, with the short sides on the front side. And like I said, I know it's kind of hard for me to show you guys this stuff and do it at the same time, but I'm trying to explain it to the best of my ability. So once you get those studs in there, you can drop your vent window back down in, and you can get those studs back through the holes. And at this point, you can back them out until they touch the door metal. Then you're going to take your short bolt. And it's always a good idea to put some anti-seize or some kind of lube on these threads of these bolts. Just in case you ever have to take them apart again. And I'm not going to tighten anything down at this point. I just want to get everything kind of started loosely. So everything is in the right position. Once I get these started, I'll bring you guys back here and I'll show you kind of what's going on. I'll just snug them up until they just barely, you know what I mean? You can still barely move it. So, what we end up with them studs. You got a stud there. You'll have a large washer with a nut made onto it. And what this does, this will be on the inside of the door metal. This is on the outside. And you turn that Allen wrench and it pushes and pulls that vent window in and out. So those are going to be in these positions right here. Be your third hole down right there. And your bottom hole right here. So like I said, you want to run these adjusters out until they touch your door metal. If not, you're not going to be able to get the nut on it. And we can adjust it from there. And generally you're not going to have to worry about these things coming out of the vent window, because like I said, they're very, very long. And your second nut is going to go in this hole down here. And I'll just run these down, not necessarily to touch, but close. So what that does, this tilt of the window, the forward to back motion of the window up here, forward to back, what I like to do, I'll snug these up until this just barely moves, kind of like it is, and I can still shift it. I'll shut this door, push that vent window up tight, snug it up through the window hole, and then I'll deal with the tilt adjustment. So, like I said, what I'll do, I'll take my ratchet right here, and since these bolts are loose, I will take and just go ahead and shut this, and I'm going to observe how this vent window is sitting. I can still shift it, I can still move it, but I need to pay attention to how it's sitting right here, if it needs to go forward or back. You want it pretty snug up against the rubber right here, and you want it snug on the inside and the outside of the rubber. So we're just going to ease up, and usually you can come in here. If you need to go forward, you can bump it forward like that. Sometimes you might have to loosen it up just a touch if you get it a little too snug. And I'll come in here and just kind of get close. Just using the top two bolts only right now. And then I'll open this door, because you're not going to be able to push it all the way. You're going to have to kind of play with it here a little bit. I'm just going to raise it up just a touch more. And we'll worry about the tilt here in a moment. But I want to make sure, like right there, I raised it up just too much. And I didn't snug it up hard, so I should be able to kind of bump it a little bit backwards. So what I want is, when I shut that door, I barely want to see a gap between right here. So it looks pretty straight right there, up there here. This vent window looks like it could come up. So more than likely I'm gonna have to come back and tilt it a little bit. So once you get your baseline fitment up right here to your roof rail weather strip, you're gonna go in here. These are your adjustments. I've already adjusted these, but you go in, tilts that window out. You go out, it tilts that window in. And you wanna make sure when this door's shut with the vent window, you wanna make sure you're hitting this rubber squarely up through here. If not, your window glass isn't gonna line up with your quarter window, and you're gonna have air leaks or water leaks around this weather strip. So once you get those adjusted, you're just gonna go in here and tighten those nuts up. None of this stuff has to be super tight, guys, at this point. Just run it down until it touches. Same with these up here. I'm just gonna give them just a little touch of a snug, just because I don't want them to start shifting. I'm gonna put door glass in it. So at this point, the vent window is installed. It fits reasonably well on this gap, and our tilt is reasonable, and we're contacting our roof rail weather strip all the way around at the top and on the inside. So that gives you the best chance of not having no water leaks. And sometimes you might run into your vent window don't quite line up with the curve right here. This is mostly in part due to an aftermarket vent window assembly. So the vent windows themselves are pretty simple. Unfortunately, the door glass itself is also very simple, but it's not in the same sense. I did leave the regulators and stuff in these doors and just pulled the glass itself out. So it still has the rear channel and all that stuff still in the car, because I didn't want to disturb it, because like I said, this car was a hack job. I knew the windows need some fine adjustments, but this is your rear run. And as you see, these two holes right here, see my finger wiggling behind them, that is for a window stop. That car did not have them. That window stop is illustrated right here. And every video I watched on this to try to kind of figure out exactly 100% what he was missing, didn't show all this stuff. They just showed you installing it, but didn't show you the part itself. That is the rear upper window stop. And you have a front upper window stop, and it looks like this right here. These are both pieces out of my 66 that I'm going to have to put into this car in order to get the glass to work correctly. So let me flip it around. We'll get this other side glass cleaned up. I'll get these old vent windows put in a pile so you can take them, and we'll go from there. And all right, like I said, these windows are in pretty poor shape, so I'm just going to take the glass cleaner. I'm going to soak the glass really well. And this is always a good thing to do with any kind of old piece of glass. And I'm just going to take a brand new straight edge razor blade. I'm going to hold it at about a 45-degree angle to this glass. And I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to, with very, very, very light pressure, I'm going to use it to run across this glass to make sure I get any weld slag broke loose, any paint overspray, or any embedded dirt that may be in this glass out. Like I said, these windows were in very, very, very poor shape originally. So I'm just going to take, I'm going to put a whole lot of effort making sure they don't have no streaks or anything in them. I just want to clean them off where we can assess the total condition of them and see if we have a usable piece of glass with the driver's door glass. The passenger door glass did have chips in it. It did have scratches. It did have weld slag burn into it from its previous life. However, it looks fairly okay in the car, and this saves him quite a bit of money reusing these, considering he had to replace his vent windows and the quarter glass due to the chrome, when in reality this car probably could have used all the glass. You just want to make sure that you keep this glass wet, and 99% of this stuff will come right off without damaging the glass. And that's also a reason to use a new blade, because if you use an old blade that you used on other stuff, it's going to have chips and stuff out of it, and that's going to scratch your glass. This window is in a lot better shape than the other side, but still not in show quality shape by any means of the imagination. But the only good thing about the door glass, 99% of the time, you're going to be riding with the windows down anyway in the summertime. So, he's got that going for it. So, like I said, just want to make sure this stuff's clean. And the stainless around these windows looks okay. It's not great, but looks okay. And as you can see, it's pretty rusty down here on the metal. I am not going to do anything with the window retainer at all. I'm just going to let it ride and try to save him a little bit of money. It's not going to hurt anything other than look ugly itself. Well, I changed my mind and I put a little rust converter on this piece right here, and I'm going to let it sit here and see if it'll clean some of this up a little bit, and then I might come back and wire brush it and spray a little paint. This side is in very bad shape compared to the other as far as this piece goes, as far as having crusty stuff. The other side was pretty much just kind of stainy looking. So let's let this stuff do its job. Let's face it, gotta do something, right? So hopefully that stuff will kill some of that rust and keep it from getting any worse. So at this point, I think we're gonna go ahead and get inside these doors. I'm gonna take the window rollers off, because that is an easy trick to leaving the window regulator in these cars. Is you can unclip the window rollers, the little blue plastic rollers that go in your glass tracks. You can unclip them, you pull your glass out, it makes it a lot easier. But you do have to take glass stops off of it. So yeah, let's get to that. Alright, these little window rollers, as I kick the camera, guys, they are literally right here on your window regulator. And they got a clip, a little hairpin clip. And once you get that hairpin clip off, these things should just pop right off. You should be able to pull them off with your finger. Unfortunately, these are not doing that. So, yeah. I'm going to have to get something else here. Maybe a little better prime apparatus. Pitch it down in the door, and I'll get that out here in just a moment. But it really don't surprise me, considering what I've dealt with this car, that something like this is going to be even worse too. But what I was trying to show you, they're these right here. And these are blue. You just can't tell because these are so dirty. So these, literally, guys, when you get them new, they come like this. And you can slide it in the track on your glass itself once you get it down in the door in here. And then you can just take and push your window straight on this, and it'll clip right on. You want to replace these things anyway, because they get old and brittle. And you can buy these things for like 50-something cents a piece from Kentucky Mustang. So I'm going to put new ones in when I put the glass back in. I've got a little bag of them right here. And there's another one. There's a guide for the inside of the window regulator track. There's also another one of these in there. So it's also a good time to go ahead and pull that off, replace this little roller, and re-grease all your tracks and slides. So I'll be back here in a moment, guys, when this rust converter does this job, and we'll get this door glass put inside this door. And while we're waiting on that to happen, I got some wind lace for our quarter panel pieces to go in the door jamb area. I'm gonna flip around. I want you to tell me if you think this is pink or you think it's red. It's supposed to be bright red, and like every other colored interior piece I bought for this car, none of the bright red matches. So let me flip it around. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but this stuff is pink, guys. I mean, this is red. This is about the same color as the bright red interior. What does that look like to you? Let me know down in the comments below. So, I'm going to get them things cleaned up. I'm going to dye them bright red. I'm going to get them installed in the background while we're waiting on that, you know, rust converter to dry. Alright, got the wind lace on it and the little chrome caps up at the top of the quarter panel trim. And our window has dried out, rust converted. I got it wire brushed down and I sprayed some black paint on it. So I'll flip around and show it to you. Alright, so I got this thing cleaned up. About the best it's going to get cleaned up. And a whole lot you can do without taking it off the glass and then blasting it and then hoping there's still metal there in the end. Let's get this thing in there. So, alright, we're at the car now. Vent window is in. I come in here and double layer this tape up on these edges, because that'll be very important here in just a moment. I've got our window carried over here and ready to put in. You go in with these at like a 45-degree angle. You want to come down in here as tight as you can. As steep of an angle as you can, because these glasses get super tight as you get down into the back of this door, and you got to get past all this stuff. And this is by far the fiddliest, hardest thing to do on putting these windows in here, because it will all bind up and you only have so much room to do the things. And once you get down to that little wedge, you need to pull this window to you, and then it will just slide down in there. But while you're doing this, you need to make sure you don't miss your vent window like I did, or you'll have to pull this up back out. But this thing is very tight in these doors. And this being a Taiwan door on this car does not help matters none whatsoever. And once you get your glass in there, guys, what I was telling you about these window rollers, go ahead and make sure your track's good and greased up. And you can stick that roller right in that track, like that right there. And then you just push and squeeze and your glass is installed. And the front one, same process. It's just a little tricky. It's a little tighter in the front half up here. And I know it's going to be hard for me to show you, but just the same process. I'm going to slide in there. I'm going to pull our regulator out and push our glass up at the same time in there and clip. And now the glass rolls up and down. That last clip was a rolling tire fire. Hopefully y'all understood what was going on. I put those little rollers in the track on the glass, clip, glass is attached to the track. Easiest way I found to do it. So at this point, the window's in the car, it rolls up and down. We need to get the upper glass stops in it. That is important in order to adjust this window. Now your upper stop, it should be a 3/16 Allen. It'll be in here through your rubber area. there will be a bolt right here. But to get this in here, you're gonna have to roll your glass up. I'm not gonna say all the way, but you wanna get that glass up so that you can swing this stop around. And there should be a 1/2 inch bolt or a 1/2 inch headed bolt down here in the door jamb right here. And the easiest way I found to set the baseline on these is to roll this glass up until it's flush with the top of the vent window. This will be a starting point, and I'll just snug these two down. Your front door glass stop is going to be right there, right in through this hole, and this is what it's going to look like right here. What this does, your little tab down here on the bottom, you got the bolt, little tab, bolt. You're going to have to go in through one of the lower holes here. You're going to get this little dude started. And this stop and the rear stop in combination is what keeps this window pulled forward when it is all the way up. That's kind of important. If you get your glass where it slides in and out of the window or in and out of the door an excessive amount, when your window's up, say it moves in and out, you have to shove that glass forward every time you shut the door, because your window hit your quarter panel. That would be because there's a problem here with one of these stops, because this helps push, like I said, push this glass forward. And what I'll do, I'll get this thing, I'm just easing my window up to where I kind of baseline the height on it, and I'm just going to snug this little guy up. I'm not going to cram him down super tight. And alright, you have adjustments here and here. There's supposed to be an adjustment stud in here, unless your stuff's all screwed up like this one is. These adjust the pitch of the glass in and out, and also adjust the depth. As you see, I've hit on this door some from the inside. This window will not come back far enough on this side. Keep in mind, this is a Taiwanese door. There's not enough adjustment in the window stuff to make this side fit. Like I said, the adjustment back there changes the tilt. This adjustment for the vent window changes the front tilt of the glass. And you want that glass to roll up and down smoothly. And you need to go ahead and put your window fuzzies in there before you do any kind of glass adjustments. Unfortunately, I can't get the door glass to go back as far as the passenger side. So I won't have to pull all the rear interior back out of this car and try to split the difference with the quarter window that already does not have enough contact with the rubber in the rear half. To try to split this difference so this door will somewhat seal. The door's all the way back far as it can go in the jamb. The windows as far back as it'll go. The vent windows as far back as it'll go. And if I remember right, the quarter windows as far forward as it will go as far as it mounting. So this could get very interesting real quick. And all this stuff was previously screwed up on this car. And I figured getting some better stuff and putting the right adjustment things back in it would actually get it to roll up and down correctly and seal up. Unfortunately, that don't seem like it's going to be the case. And if you notice, I've got a bunch of paint to touch up in that door jamb. This is part of it, guys. Anytime you do a car like this, you're going to have to touch stuff up. So, at this point, I'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to rip all the rear interior back out of this car. Undo everything. Try to shut myself up in the car with the window up. And see if I can't split the difference between these two glasses and get something to happen. Well, it's the next day. I've been in here this morning trying to get this quarter window, the door glass, straightened out. And I think I've come up with a happy median. Unfortunately, I'm a little concerned about the quarter window sealing to the body. But I've got the door where it opens and shuts easily. I've got a nice even line up the quarter window to door gap, and the door glass does not catch quarter window when you open the door. So let me flip around and I'll show you where I'm at and what I had to do to get there. So got a good decent gap here. We're good up snug on the rubber here. Right here's where I have some concerns, but that's what it took to get a decent line here. Make sure that this flap seals the best it can, and make sure we don't have no contact here. So as you can see, I got all this stuff ripped out on this side, and what I ended up having to do was take all this back loose in here again. I had to get a helper to hold the window up as I jostled all this stuff around in here, and I finally come up with a happy median between the two. If your quarter window's never been screwed with, more than likely you don't have to go through this mess. But just in case you're putting a car together that's total junk like I am, leave your rear interior apart until you get all the glass in, because you may have to go back in there and screw with some things. So let me get the rear half of this interior, you know, all that stuff shoved back in there. See if we can get back to ground zero where we started adjusting the door glass. And I'll go back in there and I'll show you these adjustment points again and what they do. Alright, so let's go over these adjustments again. These two bolts and this one down here, make sure it's jacked up like this one is. That adjusts where this glass sits in this door, and also controls the tilt and the pressure on it. Before you adjust your glass, get these window fuzzies in there. Those just pop into the door. You want to make sure both those flanges are straight and at a 90-degree angle. In here, you have a stop for the window. This goes up and down to limit the movement of your regulator. Right here, won't let it go any further up. This one right here and this one right here, they have Allens in the middle, so you will loosen these up and use an Allen wrench. That changes the tilt of the front of this glass and the vent window itself. These two bolts here, they change the angle of the vent window forward and back, and in this plane. And in your quarter window back there, those three bolts hold that track assembly to your car, moves in a plane like this. In and out at the bottom. That's some playing with too. So if you fight with the door window and you can't get it to 100% line up, you may have to split the difference with this quarter window back here. Window installation on these cars is pretty fiddly unless you're just taking a glass out and replacing a glass. Same with the vent window. If you're just putting a vent window in, it's pretty easy. If you're just putting door glass in, it's pretty easy because you're not going to adjust anything. But if you're replacing things like the regulator or these tracks and slides, you will have to go in here and tweak on this stuff a little bit. But just take your time. You get upset with it, walk away for a little while and think about what needs to be done and what needs to be happening to make this stuff work. So at this point, we're ready to put something else in. But unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of parts here. And we'll go into that here in just a second. And I'll flip it around and show you. I think we're going to go ahead and clean his seats up, but this seat trim from this distance looks pretty decent. And when you get up on this stuff is all scratched up, beat up, and pitted. And here, these things are rock hard and so dried out that they're white instead of the original gold that these seats were. I am highly scared to flip these over. But we're going to do that here in just a moment. We're going to clean these things up and look at the bottom of them. But I ordered the correct seat mounting nuts and they're not here yet. Along with, like I said, these pieces right here, and ordered some new pieces for that we're going to dye red. And as you can see, the upholstery job on these looks about as high quality as the back seat. So I don't expect miracles in the bottom there. I've got his door panels over there, but I do not have any new water shields for these doors. It is very important to put them water shields behind here, because if water gets down in here and through these holes on the back of that door panel, it will warp the boards on them. I've got the door rubbers ready to put on, but the little plastic clips that hold them door rubbers on the tops of both sides of the door in the front and the back, did not come with the door rubbers, so I'm going to have to find some of those. I do have the end seals for doors right here with the screws. And I do get a new set of seat belts for it, so we could go ahead and put those in. And I've got his old door panels right here, and I'm waiting on setting new armrest and bases for it. As you can see, these things are, you know, very, very dirty, and we're going to have to clean them up, but I think they're in decent shape. I think they would look better in red in the car instead of white, but since he's already got these, I think we should just reuse them. And I could always dye them red, but the more stuff you dye, guys, the more chances the dye is going to come off of it over time. But that might be an option if it clashes too bad. Everything on the side panels of this car is red, even though seats have white inserts. And I knew what they were thinking when they done that. They stuck white door panels to kind of try to contrast. Sometimes contrast ends up being tacky. So let's get some of this stuff cleaned up and see what it all looks like. So we'll get the seats cleaned up, and the material that you see looks pretty decent. It's got a few defects and spots that won't quite come out of it, kind of like this stuff. I've tried several different cleaners. It's just not going to come off. However, they did rip them a nice thumb-sized hole up here at the front corner of the seat, and you can see that inside the car. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it other than maybe spray a little white paint on it. They did not, however, spend any time to clean these threads up on tracks or clean tracks up at all. Threads on them pretty rough. And typical upholstery job consistent with the back. There's no burlap or foam in between this, and you're going to have all the seat frame poking through in short order. I've had a few people ask about who made these seats. The covers on them, it is a TMI kit with a very, very poor install job. As you can see, they didn't replace any of the burlap, keep the springs from eating into the foam. They didn't bother to fix any seat tracks. You know, it's just a real poor install job. Seat trim, these things are fairly inexpensive, guys. You can buy them for less than $100. Brand new from Kentucky Mustang, and you can see these. They are in pretty poor shape. The majority of the seat looks pretty decent. There is a couple defects in the piping where it's got chunks ripped out of it. But the emblem in the center looks good, along with the main part you see. However, there is some major staining in areas that just won't come out of this vinyl, no matter how hard you scrub or what you spray on it. They're just ticking time bomb like the rear seat. You see metal frames about to poke through there. All it takes, guys, is a little burlap wrapped around that or a little thin piece of foam to keep that from happening. And it looks like this burlap has actually been on fire. It is brown, crispy, and hot. As you can see there, the foam's been hot there. The main seat frame looks more solid than the rear, but it is kind of rusty and crusty, and it is full of nasty, dirty stuff up in there. So whoever upholstered these done a poor job. Yeah, at least they're poor quality enough to match back seat. And whoever done these sure didn't know what they were doing. They done a good job getting the material to look nice on the outside. But if they would have took a few more minutes, clean seat frames up, paint them, you know, fix the seat tracks, put a little burlap and foam in some areas, you could say they done a good job. But they didn't. And here we are. We're stuck using what we got. So, let's see if I can find a die to fit the thread on these seat bolts. Unfortunately, I don't know if they're going to thread. I didn't quite show you this front one up here, but it's pretty ugly. Because this thing had none of the correct mounting hardware. They just had whatever crammed on it. And unfortunately, this is one of those things that's kind of important to have the correct stuff. Because it holds the seat to the car which you sit in case of an accident, you know, you get yourself hurt. Unfortunately, in these situations, you're going to have to decide if you want to use a die, which actually cuts threads, or if you want to use a rethreader, which is something that just cleans up the rough threads. So I figured we'd try the rethreader first and see how it does. But I think we're going to need something that's going to need a little more attention. So I'm just going to run these down here. Let's see how they clean up. They clean that one up pretty decent. And generally you don't want to use a power tool on something like this. You want to do it by hand, but in this case, these things are already pretty poor. So I just want to make sure that when we do get the correct nuts, we can get them on it. And the rethreader is just something to clean the threads. It is not a tap or a die, so it don't cut anything. But if something's damaged and there's a chance that you can clean it up without cutting something, it's what you need to do. So this one is by far the worst. It looks like it might have cleaned up a little bit, but that stud right there is kind of a lost cause. And what I like to do after using the rethreader and decide if I want to use a die or not, I'll take a new nut and I'll see if I can screw it on there with my fingers. As you see, that one gets there and stops. These threads are very screwed up where they had something cross-threaded on them. I think the rest of these will be okay, but this one is highly questionable. And we may have to end up cutting this off and welding a bolt to it, along with welding this one up too. Moral of this story, guys, is if a nut don't go on or a bolt don't go in a hole, don't force it in it, because you're not doing nothing but doing damage. I would much rather see the end of these threads damaged and have to fix them than have to cut this out and replace this stud. But very, very bad stuff. But sometimes you get to the point where you just have to, like this, I'm just going to run my die down here and see if this will cut this enough that we can get a nut on it without going through a bunch of added labor. Most of the time this will not really work because you're removing material that you really need for nut tighten down. But sometimes you get lucky. And there's one thing about this car, and there's nothing about it being lucky for me. So, see if we can't get it cleaned up where it'll hold the nut. You can see how much material that removed right there. It still don't feel good. The nut's pretty loose. I don't really feel all that great about it, but we'll just have to see how it tightens down once we get in the car. Alright, so I got the track all painted and put back on there. I got the other seat up here, driver's side seat, and I was looking around here. They at least cared to put a little piece of carpet in here to try to keep the foam from pushing through, but one thing they didn't do was clean any of this stuff. I mean, it's just full up inside the seat, unfortunately. Ain't a whole lot you can do about that with the upholstery on it other than try to blow out what you can, but super nasty. But another thing to note, it's missing something here. The bolt for the seat track. And you can see it's been like that for quite a while. And these seat tracks aren't in any better shape. I've not cleaned this seat up yet. I figured I'd go ahead and flip it over and go ahead and clean these up and paint them like I did the other side. And you can see we don't have no better of an upholstery job over here. It's about ready to rip through on all fronts and corners. So the only positive side, this don't have a big old hole up there in the center. So I'll be back here in a moment and I'm gonna get these things pulled off and cleaned up. But in case anybody was wondering how seat tracks come off, you need to pull this. That track will come back. You take the evil spring off right here, and now this track don't have no tension on it. And you can slide that forward, and it should have a Phillips head bolt in it. That will hopefully come out. Like this. And as you can see, you know, they didn't put anything on anything to protect it. So once you get that off, you can unhook your little hook here. They go in these holes right here, and there's 3 holes on the other side. So you need to kind of notate which hole it's in when you take it apart. But this one's now ready to be wire brushed and degreased. And the other side, you're going to take your bolts out. These don't feel great. They're real floppy in the threads, so that's probably why that top bolt come out, or was missing, or they just put it together without it. It looks like it's got threads in it, but that don't mean nothing either. And to get this other track to go back, it's not spring loaded. You'll pull this little tab forward, and you can get to both sides of it. Fortunately, I think I can put a regular bolt in this, and it's not really going to matter on the other side. So let me get these things cleaned up, wire brushed and painted, and I'll be back. Well, the seat cleaned up fairly decent. If you couldn't tell from the time lapse, I scrubbed this thing like 10 times. And what I use is a combination of rubbing alcohol, and LA's totally awesome, and a scrub brush. This seat right here, which is driver's seat, is in very, very, very nasty shape. I got 90% of the stains off, except around through here. There's still some real dark staining in these areas, and there's just nothing I can do about it. But they do look better than what they did. And I think that's about all we can shoot for with them, because they're far from any kind of show quality seat or any kind of good job. So let me get these tracks painted. I'll be back, guys. And alright, I got our seat tracks cleaned up and painted. So I got us a new bolt there. I'm going to take some of our steel camel threading post, and I'm just going to put a little bit in these holes. Guys, it's not going to hurt anything, and it's not going to hurt the vinyl. But it will keep them threads from rusting in there. So I'm going to start off with the painting the butt side, so to say. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put our factory bolts in this side. And I'm not going to over tighten this down yet. I'm going to leave it kind of loose until I get both our bolts in, considering the condition this was in. I'm going to take, I'm just going to go ahead and put this new bolt in here. It's a little longer than the factory ones. Once I get it in there and tight, I'm going to move this back forward, and I'm going to tighten this one the rest of the way up. And at this point, it's tight. I'm going to take and hook this big spring back around like that. And I'm going to take our other track. I'm going to get it front bolt started there. I'm going to get our connecting link put back through. That releases both sides of these tracks. And I'm just going to use a little little bitty bit of force here. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to pull this side after I tighten this down. Of course, I'm getting ahead of myself. This has been kind of a day with this so far. Like I said, you never want to tighten down one side before the other until you get both the bolts started. I'm going to check and make sure that this link disengages this side. I'm going to put a little bit more of this thread and post in here in the track side as we cleaned it up. Like I said before, this stuff is pretty inert. It's not going to hurt anything. It works great for this. It works great for window tracks. Just going to put some in there. I'm going to check this and make sure it releases. And if it don't, it has an adjustment on it. You'll just tighten this up until you get full disengagement. And what you're wanting to do is get that lube. There's some Teflon blocks in here. If you get enough in this track, it will track it on up. You also want to get some here in the center. And if you want to, you can take this spring off and do them. But you just want to make sure these seat tracks are very well lubed, and that'll keep you work it a little bit and make sure they slide freely. And then you can hook that back on for the final time. And of course, if you got any of your lube up here on the top, take your towel, wipe it away. That's one thing I do like about this Steel Camel stuff. It's not like regular NSCs. It will actually wipe off fairly cleanly. What exactly it is, I couldn't tell you guys. It's kind of a proprietary type situation on what it actually is. But they sent it to me to use for some of these applications and try it out. Now, so far I've been very impressed with it. So guys, even though it feels like I didn't get a whole lot done in this video, I really did shop-wise. I got both door glasses, both vent windows in and installed. Even though we had to go back in and readjust that rear vent window, we got the front seats ready to go back in the car as soon as I get the mounting hardware and the trim pieces to do so. Also, I'm waiting on them water shields for the door panels, as I said earlier, and some other little things that prevent me from going any further with this project at the current second. So that said, this is probably about where I'm going to leave this video off. So make sure you check out our friends over at Kentucky Mustang at KentuckyMustang.com. There'll be a discount code down in the description below. And if you haven't yet, make sure you hit that like button on this video, share it with your friends. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button because it does help the channel to grow. If you're a subscriber, I greatly appreciate you guys. I look forward to everybody's comments down below. And if you haven't yet, make sure you check out our merchandise store down below. And I'll see y'all at the next one. Thanks for watching.